If you've been following Nigerian politics and international relations closely, then what I'm about to discuss will definitely catch your attention. Reports circulating online and in some media circles claim that members of the US Congress have raised serious concerns involving Rabiu Kwankwaso and Fulani herders, with allegations connected to terror financing or sponsorship in Nigeria. Now, these are heavy claims, and because of how sensitive they are, it's important to slow down, look carefully at what is actually being said, who is saying it, and what is officially confirmed versus what is still being debated or investigated.
US Congressmen Riley Moore and Chris Smith have proposed the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026, recommending targeted sanctions, asset freezes, and visa bans against former presidential candidate Rabiu Kwankwaso, the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association, Mieti Allah Kautal Hore, and what they describe as Fulani ethnic nomad militia. The bill alleges that the named individuals and groups are responsible for severe religious freedom violations. Shared by Moore on X earlier today, the document outlines statistics and historical accounts of attacks on Christians and on Muslims who advocate religious tolerance. It cites a lack of prosecutions or convictions of jihadist actors, characterizes this as a failure of the Nigerian government, and calls for coordinated support from France, the UK, and Hungary. The report also urges investigation into cases where non-Muslims are allegedly subjected to Sharia or blasphemy laws, and makes reference to victims including Rhoda Jatau and Deborah Yakubu. Now let's take a look at some tweets coming from the United States X space. Sean Nelson said the powerhouse team of Rep. Chris Smith and Rep. Riley Moore today introduced a new bill on religious freedom in Nigeria, increasing accountability measures, including recommendations for sanctions against Fulani militia and former Kano State Governor Kwankwaso, who introduced Sharia criminal law there. Nakabulu responded and said, well, how much were you paid to target and tarnish Kwankwaso's image? Zamfara State introduced Sharia first in Nigeria as part of their right because it's in the constitution of Nigeria. Christians are safer in Kano State than virtually Christian-dominated states in Nigeria. Well, of course, what we do know is that the first governor to introduce and implement Sharia law was Governor Ahmed Sani Yerima of Zamfara State in January of 2000, with other states following after that. Well, could this be a case of mistaken identity? Although we know that the bill itself, the proposed bill itself, doesn't make reference to Kwankwaso implementing Sharia law, but the commentary around it alludes to that. So it's a very huge development, because there have been several threats about naming people and outing people. And I think, I'm not sure whether people would be surprised that the first name on that list would belong to Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso. Dr. Abati, I'll come to you.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the United States has been interested under President Trump, either in his first term or now the second term, in religious persecution in Nigeria. Ditto, the Department of State of the United States, also the Department of Justice, and also now you have the African Command being involved, with President Donald Trump carrying the flag and saying there is religious persecution in Nigeria. The federal government of Nigeria has made considerable effort in that direction to say that Nigeria is a secular country, and that whereas there is insecurity in the country, there's no such thing as religious persecution. So that's the background. And now, over the years, Nigerians have been saying, name the persons. Before now, there was an attempt, I think, by the United States and also the United Arab Emirates to say that there are certain Nigerians in government and out of government who are funding terrorism. I think also under the Jonathan administration, there was some debate about the admittance at a senior level that, in fact, there were saboteurs inside the government. Now we have reached an interesting point whereby the United States House of Reps, Representative Chris Smith, I think he's 73 years old, the two oldest persons in the House of Reps in the US, he's been there since 1978, representing the 14th District of New Jersey. And then you have Congressman Riley Moore, also now, proposing a bill, and they are now saying that the United States Congress should declare the Katauri, Mieti Allah Katauri, should declare it a terrorist organization, and also Mieti Allah itself, which is the principal, home body, should be declared. And then they have now, in that context, named certain persons, and it is the name of Senator former governor, Dr. Rabiu Kwankwaso, flag bearer in the last general elections of the NMPP that has been mentioned. And then Magban, there's a group called Magban. Fulani ethnic nomads have also been named. Well, this matter has to go before the Congress, and they've indicated penalties that such persons will be declared as terrorists. Such persons will not be allowed to go anywhere near the United States of America. So it's a developing story. The matter will still go to Congress. It will be debated. But what you can say is that with the involvement of both Congressman Chris Smith and Riley Moore, this may be an outcome of the various visitations to Nigeria and the interactions with the Nigerian authorities. But we on our own at this table cannot reach a conclusion and say, oh, these persons, these groups, have been so properly identified. So there will be also negotiations, discussions at the binational level.
Absolutely. Ayo, your take on this?
Okay, so this is a
huge
story. And it's come up from, there's a journey towards this point, starting off, of course, very significantly, amongst the other things that have happened, that infamous post by President Donald Trump, which then triggered a chain of reaction. Obviously, from the Nigerian end, the efforts that have been made to convince the US government that there's no Christian genocide happening has not seemed to yield much fruit, because the conclusion of this bill is that there is Christian genocide happening. In fact, before we talk about the main thrust of the story, which is the naming of some of the people they've identified to institute the Magnitsky Agreement Act, which includes asset freezing. It's not just visa bans, it's also asset freezing, and also this would have an implication for them beyond the United States of America. In fact, in this bill, some of their partners are mentioned, the United Kingdom, as well as others are mentioned, and they might, France, some of them might also decide to take on the same action. But I think beyond that is how detailed the report, about a 12-page bill. The preamble was to give details to the extent of the investigation that they did, including the congressional hearing, the fact that both Christian and moderate Muslims have been killed, the fact that some of them who oppose these things were targeted, were kidnapped, and were killed. So a lot of detail in the work that they did, and then the conclusion around what ought to be done, including the naming of these people. All through this journey, let me call it that, what I've been insistent on is that I wish that Nigeria took the lead on this, because it is quite sad that we're now referring to or depending on the United States to tell us what is happening in our country and what ought to be done. I want to almost say the audacity of one sovereign to interfere in fact, what they've cited as an example is that it's a threat to US national security, and that's why they've taken an interest in this matter. But it should be more.
If you've been following Nigerian politics and international relations closely, then what I'm about to discuss will definitely catch your attention. Reports circulating online and in some media circles claim that members of the US Congress have raised serious concerns involving Rabiu Kwankwaso and Fulani herders, with allegations connected to terror financing or sponsorship in Nigeria. Now, these are heavy claims, and because of how sensitive they are, it's important to slow down, look carefully at what is actually being said, who is saying it, and what is officially confirmed versus what is still being debated or investigated. Before we go deeper, if you value calm, fact-focused breakdowns of major issues affecting Nigeria and the wider world, please like this video, share it with others who want clear explanations, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments as we go along. Your engagement helps more people see balanced discussions like this. So, what exactly is being talked about here? According to reports making the rounds, some US lawmakers have been discussing security challenges in Nigeria, particularly the long-running conflicts between herders and farming communities in parts of the country, as well as the broader issue of armed groups operating in different regions. In that context, certain names and groups have allegedly come up during congressional briefings, hearings, or policy debates. However, as of now, publicly available records from official US government terror designation lists have not clearly shown a formal finalized classification matching the dramatic wording being shared online. What seems more likely, based on cautious reporting, is that lawmakers or analysts may have raised questions, cited intelligence claims, or called for investigations rather than announcing a completed legal designation. To understand why this matters, we need to step back and look at how the US Congress actually works when it comes to terrorism-related issues. Congress itself does not usually unilaterally name individuals or groups as terrorist sponsors in a legal sense. That process normally involves the US State Department intelligence agencies, and executive branch procedures that follow specific laws. Congress members can, however, hold hearings, request reports, introduce resolutions, or publicly accuse or question actors they believe are linked to violence or instability. Those statements can spark headlines and political debate even before any formal decision is made by the agencies responsible for official listings. Now, Rabiu Kwankwaso is a major political figure in Nigeria, known for his influence and past roles in government. So any international allegation tied to his name would be extremely serious and would naturally provoke strong reactions at home and abroad. On the other hand, the term Fulani herders describes a broad community spread across West Africa, most of whom are ordinary pastoralists going about their daily lives. Over the years, clashes between some herding groups and farming communities in parts of Nigeria have caused tragic loss of life and displacement, and armed criminal elements have sometimes exploited these tensions. But many analysts have repeatedly stressed that it is inaccurate and unfair to treat an entire ethnic or occupational group as if they were a single organized militant body. That distinction is crucial because public conversations, especially online, can quickly blur complex realities into simple, explosive narratives. When people hear that a foreign parliament is talking about terrorism in Nigeria, emotions rise, speculation spreads, and misinformation can travel faster than official clarifications. This is why careful wording matters. When you see phrases like reports indicate, lawmakers discussed, or sources claim, those are signals that something is being alleged or debated, not necessarily finalized in the law. So how did these claims start trending? In many cases, it begins with the snippets from policy discussions, social media posts from commentators, or interpretations of congressional sessions that focus on Nigeria's security challenges. Someone highlights a line about funding networks, political influence, or armed groups, attaches a prominent name to it, and suddenly the story grows wings. Content creators, blogs, and even some news outlets may repeat the strongest version of the claim without waiting for full documentation, especially when the topic already draws huge public interest. Another factor is Nigeria's long-standing engagement with the United States on security cooperation. Over the years, US officials have spoken openly about concerns over insurgency in the Northeast, banditry in the Northwest, communal violence in parts of the Middle Belt, and kidnappings affecting many communities. Congressional committees routinely ask how US aid is being used, whether sanctions are needed against particular actors, and what steps could reduce instability. In that environment, names can surface in briefings or testimonies, sometimes as part of disputed intelligence or political arguments rather than settled conclusions. Why does all of this matter so much for Nigerians at home and abroad? First, any suggestion that a Nigerian political leader is being scrutinized internationally for terror-related issues could affect diplomatic relations, investment confidence, and Nigeria's image on the global stage. Even unproven allegations can influence how foreign governments, businesses, and partners view the country. Second, broad statements about communities like herders can deepen mistrust and worsen already fragile relationships between groups living side by side in rural areas. Words spoken in Washington can echo all the way to villages in Nigeria if they are picked up and amplified without nuance. There is also the legal side. If an individual or
organization were ever formally designated by the US government as a terror sponsor that could trigger asset freezes, travel restrictions, and criminal penalties for anyone providing support, it could also pressure other countries to take similar actions. That's why such designations usually come with official announcements, detailed explanations, and documentation, not just off-the-cuff remarks. At the moment, what viewers should do is pay attention to primary sources. Look for official statements from the US State Department, published congressional records, or responses from Nigerian authorities and the individuals involved. Those are the places where confirmation or denial will appear first, not just in viral screenshots or dramatic captions. Nigerian government agencies often respond quickly when international accusations arise, either by requesting clarification, rejecting claims they see as inaccurate, or promising investigations if credible evidence is presented. It's also worth noting that Nigeria's internal security challenges are extremely complex. They involve criminal gangs, insurgent groups, local disputes over land and water, political rivalries, climate pressures affecting grazing routes, and weak law enforcement in some remote areas. Reducing that entire picture to a single headline about sponsorship oversimplifies what is actually happening on the ground and can distract from practical solutions like community mediation, better policing, economic development, and accountability for anyone, regardless of background, who commits crimes. Let's talk briefly about the international angle again. US lawmakers often debate foreign policy in strong language, especially when human rights abuses or civilian casualties are reported. They may push for tougher stances, visa bans, or conditions on military assistance. Those debates are part of how American democracy functions, but they don't automatically translate into immediate policy changes. Sometimes they lead to further reviews, intelligence assessments, or diplomatic conversations behind closed doors before anything concrete happens. For Nigerians watching this unfold, it's natural to feel concerned, skeptical, or even angry, depending on personal experiences with insecurity or political loyalty. But this is exactly the moment when careful consumption of news matters most. Ask simple questions. Who said this? In what forum? Was it an official declaration or a discussion? Has there been a written report or legal notice? How have Nigerian authorities responded? And are multiple reputable outlets confirming the same details? If you're finding this breakdown helpful so far, remember to like the video, share it with friends who are trying to make sense of the headlines, subscribe for more calm explainers like this, and leave your own perspective in the comments. Civil, thoughtful discussion helps everyone understand these issues better. Another point to consider is how language shapes public reaction. The word terrorist carries enormous weight, legally and emotionally. Governments usually apply it very cautiously because of the consequences involved. When that word appears in political debates without full context, it can inflame tensions, both domestically and internationally. That's why journalists and analysts often try to separate allegations, intelligence assessments, and confirmed legal actions into different categories instead of lumping them together. We should also keep in mind that political rivalries inside Nigeria can influence how such international comments are interpreted and shared. Supporters and critics of different leaders may highlight or downplay stories depending on how they fit into ongoing domestic debates. Social media, with its speed and emotion-driven algorithms, can magnify that effect, pushing the most dramatic version of a claim far wider than cautious updates or later clarification. So, where does that leave us right now? Based on what is publicly verifiable at the moment, the safest conclusion is that US lawmakers have been discussing Nigeria's security situation and may have raised serious questions about various actors. But sweeping claims of finalized terror sponsorship designations should be treated carefully until confirmed by official government channels. Viewers should stay alert for formal announcements, detailed reports, or direct statements from the people named. As this story continues to develop, it will be important to watch how Nigerian officials, US agencies, and independent investigators respond. Do they release documents? Do they clarify what was said in Congress? Do they reject the claims outright or say inquiries are ongoing? Those follow-ups will tell us far more than early viral headlines alone. In the meantime, staying informed means checking multiple sources, avoiding inflammatory language, and remembering that complex security problems rarely have simple explanations. Nigeria's challenges deserve serious, careful discussion, not just sensational framing. Thanks for sticking with me through this detailed look at what's being reported and what still needs confirmation. If you haven't yet, like the video, share it with others who want a clearer picture, subscribe for future updates, and comment below with your thoughts or questions. Just keep it respectful and focused on the facts as we learn more. I'll keep following credible developments on this story, and as new verified information comes out,
We'll break it down calmly and clearly together.